Good evening, you're watching Left, Right and Centre. I'm Nidhi Razdan. In a huge blow to the centre, just months after the Uttarakhand verdict, the Supreme Court today struck down President's rule in Arunachal Pradesh and restored the Congress government headed by Nabam Tukhi. The court quashed all the decisions of the governor, calling his actions illegal and unconstitutional. The BJP's only response has been that the order is strange.
The clock has been set back in Arunachal Pradesh by the Supreme Court by ordering that the ousted Congress Chief Minister Nabam Tukhi to return to office and the removal of the Congress rebel BJP government. The governor, appointed by the centre about 6 months before the crisis began, has been severely criticised, especially over actions like this meeting of the Congress rebels that Mr. Rajgopal called, and that he must keep clear of any political horse trading, unsavoury political manipulations, irrespective of the degree of their ethical repulsiveness. The governor never called a floor test, nor asked the chief minister to establish his majority. His actions, based on feuds and wrangles of a breakaway group, cannot be constitutionally condescended. Rajgopal humiliated the government of the day and ignored its resolution, leading to a thrashing given to the constitution and a spanking to governance. The governor, incidentally, is on a week's leave.
We want the governor to submit his resignation immediately, and if he does not do so, we will ask for him to be dismissed.
Although the centre was not a party to the case, the BJP Satyapal Jain argued for the governor, and the Congress's top lawyers Kapil Sibal and Vivek Tankha for the ousted CM.
Governor's decision was based on his own interpretation of the Constitution of India. There is no question of any BJP defending or at the back of the decisions.
For the Modi government, the Arunachal Pradesh setback is the latest. In May, the top court restored the Congress government in Uttarakhand, revoking central rule, a case the Attorney General Mukul Rohtgi argued. Last year, the government lost a crucial battle with the judiciary over judges' appointments, a verdict Rohtgi described as flawed at the time. Then a Mumbai special court refused to accept the National Investigation Agency's clean chit for Sadhvi Pragya in the Malegaon terror case.
Now there are questions over legal advice given to the centre before imposing President's rule. But the blame will have to be shared equally by those given the advice and those who implemented it. In New Delhi, Arunachalam Vaidyanathan, NDTV.
Well, joining us now, the newsmaker of the day, Mr. Nabam Tukhi, joins us on the program this evening. Sir, you must be very relieved today after the Supreme Court's order on what is happening in Arunachal Pradesh. But what about your own numbers, Mr. Tukhi? Do you have the numbers actually to form the government there?
Yes, today we got a landmark judgment from the Supreme Court of India, where we expected that justice will prevail upon the state of Arunachal Pradesh and Congress party. According to the judgment, we will abide by the decision of the Supreme Court's judgment, and the majority is concerned. Congress have 47 MLAs in the 60-member house. The Congress party have a majority in the state.
Okay, so you're very confident of your numbers, but the gentleman who replaced you in that position, Mr. Pool, however, is defiant. He's saying he's not going to resign. He's also planning to file a review petition as far as this order is concerned. What would you say about that?
You see, it is a Supreme Court Constitutional Bench judgment. I believe the constitutional judgment, 5-member bench constitutional judgment is final, and in a democratic setup, the majority party form the government. Every individual cannot have a majority. The party have to have a majority. Therefore, majority party form the government according to the democracy system. So therefore, Congress have a majority in Arunachal Assembly. So Congress government has been formed, and now Congress government has come back to power again.
Mr. Tukhi, though, isn't there a lesson for you in all of this? Because this entire crisis actually began because of a rebellion in your own party, which was very badly handled by all accounts, and a lot of criticism was made of your own style of functioning at the time. Would you concede that there are lessons that have to be learnt from this for the Congress as well?
Actually, these are all baseless allegations. It is all allegations because these are the conspiracy hatched by the BJP and their leader. Therefore, they have misused the authority, the office of the governor of Arunachal Pradesh. So they did it, and the Congress, within the Congress, there was no any dissent, but they made it to be a dissent among the Congress party. But Congress are united in Arunachal Pradesh, and Congress brought majority in last 2014 elections.
But Mr. Tukey, you had more than 20 MLAs of your own party who went against you. So were they all because of a BJP conspiracy? At the end of the day, your own party rebelled against you. So I am asking whether there is a lesson that's been learned from that and the dissent within your party.
Therefore, I am telling you that Congress was united, but this, due to conspiracy between the BJP, they tried to destabilize the government by breaking away some of our Congress MLAs. Therefore, the dissident has been formed. Otherwise, within the party, every political party, they have a difference of opinions, difference of their aim and objectives. But ultimately, the party is one. BJP or any other political party also have so many dissident activities. It does not mean that they form a majority.
Well, Mr. Tukey, what is the next step then? Are you going to go for a floor test straight away? What happens now?
I'll go by the whatever the Supreme Court judgment given. I'll go by that, and then Congress have a majority. I'll strengthen the Congress party in the state.
But you'll
and
prove it on the floor of the House.
I am talking to the MLAs. They are all Congress MLAs now. All are Congress MLAs now. They have to be work under the Congress party.
But you will go for a floor test, right?
I have to be abide by the law, because that given floor test was not given by the previous orders or previous by the governor. So if the Supreme Court judgment say that, I have to go by according to the judgment.
Well, I would stick my neck out and say that perhaps the best way to do it would be to have a floor test regardless, failing which perhaps fresh elections, very uncertain times ahead in that sense, but certainly a moral victory for you there, Mr. Tukey, today, a very significant Supreme Court order that's come in the course of the day. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Well, has this order come as a huge embarrassment for the centre? Joining us on the program tonight, Manish Tiwari, spokesperson of the Congress party and former union minister, Mr. GVL Narasimha Rao, national spokesperson of the BJP, Mr. Dushyant Dave, senior advocate of the Supreme Court, and editor and journalist Aarti Jairath here in the studio with us. Manish Tiwari, certainly a big moral victory there for the Congress party today, but is it too early to celebrate, because you do face a problem of numbers, which is what I was asking Mr. Tukey earlier as well. Do you have the numbers to form this government in Arunachal?
Well, Nidhi, it's a victory for the Constitution of India. Let's get a couple of things straight and right. First of all, it's a unanimous verdict of the Constitutional Bench of the Supreme Court. There may be three separate judgments, but all the judgments have concurred with regard to the illegality perpetrated by the central government. Number two, this is the first time in the constitutional history of India that the Supreme Court has actually set the clock back to the 15th of December 2015. All previous judgments have been post facto. This is a judgment which has restored a government to its position as it stands on the 15th of December. Number three, there's been a stinging indictment of the role of the governor. I don't think that the Supreme Court could have come down more heavily on the governor than they have done, and any self-respecting person should have resigned the moment that this judgment came in. Number four, it is not an embarrassment. It is much more than that insofar as the central government is concerned. coming as it does after Uttarakhand, as you were rightly pointing out, it clearly tells the central government that you cannot misuse, abuse the instrumentalities of the state, including the office of the governor, in order to topple democratically elected opposition governments. If this government would have had any sense in its head, they would have said that we'll respect the verdict of the Supreme Court, we'll introspect on it, rather than trying to brazen it out in the manner in which they are.
Okay, let me take that point to Mr. GVL Rao, because Mr. Rao, when you look at the court's words today, they're so strong and scathing on the governor in particular, that the actions of the governor were not in the language or the spirit of parliamentary democracy, that the governor should keep clear of horse trading, unsavory political manipulation, that who should or should not be the leader of a political party is something that should be resolved privately by a party. The governor cannot make these issues a matter of his concern. Mr. Rao, would you concede that this has been a setback for the centre today, coming as it does also after the Uttarakhand verdict?
We don't see it that way. And then there have been judgments in the past, and much worse comments had been reserved for the governors under the Congress rule. So I don't see this as something very unusual in that sense. Nevertheless, it's an important judgment that needs to be studied carefully, because we don't have a copy of the judgment as of now. The government and the party will study it and then come up with a more robust response. But for the Congress party, which has been facing a drought of good news, I think it's been so scarce. So they are latching on to this judgment, where the chief minister will be restored to office, but without any MLAs supporting him. The Congress, Mr. Tukey, Nabam Tukey, has only 15 MLAs supporting him in a house of 60 MLAs.
But Mr.
So
Rao,
this is
the
very
question,
paradoxical.
That is a question, but it's a question of principle. It's a question of the constitution. And the action that was carried out to impose president's rule. So in that sense, is it, I mean, for the BJP to call it a strange verdict, as the word was used by a spokesperson earlier today, is it just that? Is it just a strange verdict? Isn't it much more than that? It's quite a scathing verdict.
No, every verdict has a meaning, and that one can understand it in its entirety only when you read the entire judgment, but not portions of it. But what is important today is it's a matter of principle for the Congress party not to impose leaders from Delhi. It's also a reflection of the sagging fortunes of the Gandhi dynasty, and leaders in the states are not willing to listen to them, not willing to really accept anything that they impose on them. I think this is a classic case where where the government had fallen mainly on account of internal rebellion within the Congress party. You had seen earlier how Congress leaders in Assam, for several years, they wanted to...
Mr. Rao, that the Congress's internal problems are one thing, but this is about the constitutionality of dismissing a government, of imposing central rule, and removing a democratically elected government, and that is where the centre has backfired again after Uttarakhand. What is the silver lining in this?
No, but how it is not incumbent upon the central government to ensure that the Congress legislature party does not split. The Congress legislature party does not have a disharmony within itself. That's for the Congress party to manage their internal affairs. The entire problem arose because they lost the numbers, because they wanted to unconstitutionally, illegally sack MLAs.
Dushyant Dave, let me bring you in. Why is this a landmark verdict today, Dushyant Dave?
Nidhi, may I rebut that straight off? I think that needs to be rebutted.
I just want to get first comments from Mr. Dave.
I'll come back to you. Manish, just let me is something which is adding insult to injury.
Manish, please, let me just get first comments from Mr. Dave on this. I do want to get, because this is legally a very important judgment, and as you said, it set the clock back for the first time. Mr. Dave.
Nidhi, it's important because as I heard both Manish and Mr. Rao, it's not about Congress and BJP. It's about the democracy of this country. It's about the people of India. And it's about the constitutional morality. What really has happened is that the Supreme Court has brilliantly redefined the scope and ambit of the powers of the governor vis-a-vis the legislative assembly, vis-a-vis the government of the state, the council of ministers, and what are the functions that the governor is to perform, and what are the duties that the governor must perform under the constitutional scheme. So to that extent, this judgment is one of the finest expositions that any lawyer or a person who loves law or constitution would love to read. I mean, I don't know, I'm surprised Mr. Rao says copy is not available. I've got a copy, one can download it. I have read the entire judgment of about 300 pages very quickly. And both the judgment of Justice Kher, the presiding judge with whom two judges have joined, Justice Lokur and Justice Deepak Mishra, each one of the three opinions are absolutely brilliant. Now, having said that, why this is important is this, that normally what happens, in cases like this is what I can describe very beautifully, that operation successful, patient dead. Normally, the relief is not given to people. This is a case where judges realized that something drastic needed to be done. They found the governor's actions to be so arbitrary, so unacceptable, so unconstitutional, that the Supreme Court has for the first time ordered status quo ante to be restored, which means the position as prevailed on 10th of December 2015 stands restored, which is truly extraordinary. I mean, it is really heartening that judges have not allowed the matter to really rest by giving only an academic lecture or exposition of law. They have gone whole hog to say that we will not permit this and this is unconstitutional. We will restore the Chief Minister Touki, and that's the end of the matter. So to that extent, I think this is a historic judgment, and it really paves way for future that no governor can really behave in the fashion that they do. And I must tell Mr. Rao that yes, Congress House was really in disorder, maybe, but what has lured the MLAs to desert Congress, everybody knows.
I think the court, as the court said, it's not for the governor to decide. It's not for the governor to decide about what is happening internally in a party. But Aarti Jairath, on the political point A, I mean, the governor really actually should have stepped down by now, shouldn't he? Given this scathing verdict, A. And what's the lesson in this for both the centre and the Congress politically?
Well, I mean, I'm really surprised at Mr. Rao's reaction, because I would have thought that they would be a little humble after this kind of stinging rebuke from the Supreme Court. And I think one way in which they can make amends is to get the governor to resign. Because, I mean, I really, the governor cannot hold his face up after this kind of, a judgment. The political lessons, look, firstly, I hope, the Modi government has tried this twice. They did it in Arunachal, and probably because they seem to succeed in Arunachal, because this judgment has taken 6 months to come. Because they seem to succeed in Arunachal, they got emboldened to do it in Uttarakhand. And as you know, there's this tug of war which is going on in Delhi. Every day there's something or the other happening, and Arvind Kejriwal has already, sounded the warning that, his government may be dismissed. So I hope that the Modi government will learn its lesson and will not try to do something that the Congress was famous for, and that the BJP always criticized the Congress for all these decades. So I hope the BJP will learn its lesson. As far as the Congress is concerned, look, I mean, they created the problem in the first place because the High Command just didn't listen to these rebels when they came to Delhi, and they were wanting to meet Rahul and they were wanting to meet Sonia, and they just didn't get a proper hearing. And, I mean, actually the BJP should have let the Congress government collapse under its own weight instead of stirring the, fishing in troubled waters.
Would you concede that that is the political lesson for the Congress here, that it has utterly mishandled rebellions across various states, and that is the lesson to take away from Arunachal as well? You may not actually, I think if you have a floor test, Mr. Touki may not win.
I'm sorry, Nidhi, that is totally incorrect. Presuming that there was a problem in Arunachal Pradesh within the Congress Legislative Party, and certain legislators had expressed their no confidence in the Chief Minister, it was incumbent upon the governor under those circumstances to summon the assembly in the precincts of the assembly. You do not hold the assembly session, in a football stadium or in some other godforsaken community hall and say that, look, the assembly has met and it has expressed its no confidence in the Chief Minister. I mean, this is absolutely, totally unwarranted, out of line, and bizarre and preposterous, for the lack of a better word, that a governor actually instructs the deputy speaker to hold an assembly session in the community hall and then says that a vote of no confidence has been passed against the incumbent chief minister when he and his MLAs are not even there. And that is what is indeed ironical in the argument which the BJP spokesperson is making, that first of all, you misuse the office of the governor in order to topple a democratically elected government, then you misuse the instrumentalities of the state in order to change the facts on the ground by luring the MLAs away, and
should
then
that be
you
the
have
first
the
step?
brazenness
Should
and the shamefacedness to turn around and say that all this happened because of an internal rebellion in the Congress. I'm sorry, this is a verdict against the misuse of Article 356
it is very much about the
by
governor.
the central
It
government.
is very much about
this
the governor.
This is the second time
Mr. Rao,
that the
does
Supreme
the governor
Court
have the
has
moral
held
authority to
Prime
continue?
Minister Narendra Modi and his cabinet
let him answer.
Mr.
Rao, does the governor
Constitution.
have the moral authority to continue?
No, I think that's a question that's best asked to the governor himself. I'm not going to give any commentary on what each official or each functionary should do. But as far as Mr. Manish Tiwari's proposition is concerned, governor actually, this is exactly what the governor intended to do. He had preponed the session. Now the Supreme Court says what Manish Tiwari is saying is not acceptable. And the session was supposed to be held within the premises of the assembly. But you have rowdy elements in your government and party who lock up the state assembly, do not expect any proceedings to happen inside the premises of the assembly. What do you expect a constitutional functionary to do? I'm looking forward to reading something about it in the Supreme Court judgment.
What if rowdy
Supreme Court has not been persuaded by your argument? The Supreme Court has held the governor's
action to be illegal and
to be completely unconstitutional.
Dave,
you are making the same argument which your counsels made in the court, which the Supreme Court has deprecated and struck down and reprimanded the governor in the harshest terms.
We have a situation though, Mr. Dave, where what if
the current
leadership refuses to step
the Prime
aside?
Minister and his cabinet also.
Okay, what if the technically Mr. Tukey is the chief minister right now, but what if the incumbent refuses to leave? Because he's saying that I will file a review petition, I'm not going to resign. What happens tomorrow?
Well, he has to act forthwith. There is no question, he must step down. The governor must dismiss him. If the governor doesn't do it, the central government must intervene, and the Home Ministry must direct the governor to ask the chief minister to immediately step out. And Mr. Tukey must be sworn in, because if they don't do that, then to my mind it will be a clear contempt of the Supreme Court order. But there is one thing that I want to say, and which is really a sorry state of affairs. Both the BJP spokesperson here on your show and the Congress spokesperson are really running away from the realities. BJP must accept the fact that this is a judgment of the Supreme Court. It must be respected, and its spokesperson cannot now try to explain the judgment, virtually calling it a wrong decision, which is really a sad commentary. You know, the governor must act on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. When he preponed the session, he never did so. That's the only issue here. And Supreme Court has rightly answered that. So Mr. Rao should not be running around and trying to say that Supreme Court has done this or that. It doesn't really reflect well on a responsible party like BJP. At the same time, I think Manish is also running away from the fact that the Congress legislators were greatly dissatisfied. Everybody knows that. And the functioning of the Congress party is so autocratic that these MLAs did not get a hearing, as you rightly pointed out, either from Sonia Gandhi or Rahul. It reflects very poorly on our political establishment. And this vacuum which is created by them, the judges have to step in. They have rightly stepped in. Because in a policy of checks and balances that we have under the Constitution, judges have to step in.
That's actually very well put, and I think that really sums up the scenario for both parties today. Last word to Aarti Jairath on that.
And I find it so sad actually that Manish Tiwari and GVL Narasimha Rao are arguing something that has already been settled by the Supreme Court today in its judgment. And actually, the Congress, it may be a Pyrrhic victory for the Congress because they have this problem now of definitely of numbers, of rebellion. I mean, the incumbent chief minister has already, sounded the warning. The thing is, will the Congress leadership finally listen to what their Arunachal MLAs have been trying to tell them all these months?
Yeah.
Will they
And-
finally listen, and will they do some political management and try to get that government off the ground? Otherwise, we're going to have a very sorry display of
Which is why this story has many
ugly
layers to
politics.
it. It's the political layer that you're talking about, and certainly the one that was settled by the Supreme Court today on matters related to the Constitution and the role of the governor. Thank you to you all for joining us tonight. We'll see how this story plays out politically in the next few days. Could be some interesting times ahead. See you tomorrow.